Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to help you get up to speed on complex topics quickly without feeling totally overwhelmed.
Yeah, cutting through the noise.
Exactly. So today, we're tackling something I think, well, most of us have probably wondered about. How much does your actual personality affect how you do in school?
It feels pretty obvious on the surface, doesn't it? You know, the really organized student probably gets better grades.
That
Simple.
seems straightforward.
But like most things, when you actually dig in a bit, the picture gets, well, a lot more complex. We're looking at a really significant piece of research today. It's a meta-analysis.
Okay, so a study of studies, basically.
Precisely. This one pooled results from 78 different studies. And get this, it involved over 500,000 students.
500,000. Wow. Okay, that's some serious statistical power then.
It really is. And they were looking specifically at the connection between the big five personality traits.
Ah, yeah, the big five: openness, conscientiousness.
Yeah.
What are the others?
Extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So linking those 5 traits to how students perform academically.
Okay.
But, and this is the really crucial part, they didn't just look at like overall school success, they broke it down.
Broke it down how?
2 main ways. First, how achievement was actually measured. Were they looking at, say, course grades given by teachers or scores on standardized tests, like the SAT or similar?
Okay. Grades versus tests. That makes sense. They can be pretty different.
Very different, yeah. And second, they looked at the subject area. Was it a language-based subject, think English, history, or was it a STEM subject, you know, science, technology, engineering, math?
Gotcha. So our mission today for this deep dive is to really unpack this huge study. We want to figure out which personality bits really matter, and does it change if you're, say, writing an essay versus solving an equation?
Exactly. Or if we're looking at your report card versus some big standardized test score, we want to pull out the key insights, maybe find some surprising patterns.
And help people listening understand, how their own personality might fit into different school contexts.
That's the goal. So, maybe we should start with just a quick refresher on what those big 5 traits actually are.
Good idea. So openness to experience. That's about being curious, right? Liking new ideas, being creative, imaginative.
Yeah, exactly. Intellectually curious, enjoys art, adventure, that kind of thing. Then you've got conscientiousness.
Okay, that one sounds pretty school relevant. Organized, responsible.
Goal-oriented, dependable, disciplined, the planner in the group.
Right. Then extroversion.
That's your sociability, assertiveness, energy level, people who draw energy from being around others.
The life of the party, maybe. Or at least comfortable speaking up.
Sort of, yeah. Then agreeableness.
Being nice, basically.
Cooperative.
Pretty much. Cooperative, trusting, empathetic, kind, valuing social harmony.
Okay. And the last one, neuroticism.
Right. This one's about the tendency towards negative emotions. So anxiety, stress, moodiness, emotional instability. Got it. Okay, so those are the big 5. Now, generally speaking, personality does matter for school. Well, that's not new.
No, that basic idea is well established. Personality influences behaviors that help with learning. The classic example is conscientiousness. If you're conscientious, you're probably more likely to, do your homework, study for tests, put in the effort.
Makes sense. Effort usually leads to better results.
Usually. But it's not just direct effort. There's also this concept called active niche picking.
Active niche picking, what's that?
It's the idea that students might sort of naturally choose or pick environments and experiences that fit their personality.
Ah, okay. So an extroverted student might actively seek out group projects or classes with lots of discussion.
Exactly. While maybe a more introverted student might prefer independent study or quieter library sessions. So your personality shapes how you study and the situations you put yourself in.
Okay. But this big meta-analysis we're digging into suggests that just saying personality matters is too simple.
Way too simple. That's the main point, really. The researchers found that the subject you're studying makes a huge difference. Language versus STEM.
Right. Because learning feels different in those areas.
Totally different. The skills needed for writing a poem versus proving a theorem are not the same. And this can even shape how students see themselves, the whole I'm a math person or I'm definitely not a math person, I'm a language person idea.
Yeah, and that self-perception can really impact motivation and performance, can it?
Absolutely. And the study points out that if you just look at someone's overall GPA, you completely miss these important differences between subjects.
It all gets averaged out. You lose the detail.
You lose the nuance. You can't see how, say, openness might really help in English, but maybe less so in physics or whatever it might be.
Okay, so the subject matters.
Yeah.
And you also said the way we measure achievement matters, grades versus standardized tests,
Yes. That's the other big piece. Grades and test scores, well, they're related, obviously, but the correlation is only moderate.
meaning they're measuring somewhat different things.
Exactly. They tap into different aspects of a student's abilities and behaviors. Think about grades, they come from a teacher's evaluation over time.
Right, includes homework, participation, projects, quizzes, lots of stuff.
Yeah, so it reflects sustained effort, classroom behavior, maybe even how well you get along with the teacher, potentially. They're less standardized, more subjective in some ways.
Whereas standardized tests are, well, standardized.
Right, designed to be objective. One point in time, often curriculum independent, focused more on specific cognitive skills or knowledge.
So the conscientious student doing all the homework might ace the course grade, but maybe not score top percentile on the standardized test if the test covers stuff differently.
That's the kind of difference we're talking about. And the researchers used a framework to help explain why personality might link differently to these measures. It's called the Personality Achievement Saturation Hypothesis, PASH for short.
PHH. What does that framework look at?
It looks at 5 features of achievement measures. Things like standardization, how consistent the measure is; relevance, how much it reflects classroom teaching; curricular validity alignment with the curriculum; instructional sensitivity, how much teaching quality affects scores; and cognitive ability saturation, how much it's just measuring raw smarts.
Whoa, okay. That's quite a list. So grades and tests would score differently on those 5 things.
Definitely. Grades are generally less standardized, but maybe higher on relevance to specific classroom activities. Tests are high on standardization, maybe higher on cognitive ability saturation, but potentially lower on reflecting specific teaching.
And understanding those differences helps us predict why, say, extroversion might matter more for a grade than a test score.
Precisely. It gives us a lens to understand the patterns they found. Which brings us to the really fascinating part, looking at each Big 5 trait individually.
Okay, let's do it. Where should we start? Openness.
Sounds good. Openness to experience. Remember, that's intellectual curiosity, creativity, liking new ideas.
Right. So how does being open relate to doing well in school, according to this big study?
Well, overall, there's a positive link. Openness is generally good for achievement. But there's always a but, isn't there? Huh. Seems like it. The but here is that the connection was significantly stronger in language subjects.
Ah, so better for English than for math.
Basically, yes. And that was true for both language grades and language test scores.
Okay, that kind of makes intuitive sense. Language subjects often value, critical thinking, different perspectives, maybe creative writing, stuff that seems aligned with openness.
Exactly. Whereas STEM fields are sometimes seen as more rule-bound or focused on single right answers, where maybe that kind of broad exploration is less directly rewarded.
So being open might give you more of an edge in your literature class compared to calculus.
That seems to be what the data suggests. Interestingly, while there wasn't a huge overall difference between grades and tests for openness generally, the positive link was stronger for both language grades and language tests compared to STEM grades and tests.
So openness helps more in language domains, regardless of how you measure it. Do they have any ideas why it might help on language tests, too?
Yeah, one idea was that people high in openness might actually thrive a bit more in unfamiliar test situations. Their curiosity and comfort with novelty might give them an edge when facing new types of questions or prompts.
Interesting. Okay, so that's openness. What about conscientiousness?
Yeah.
The organized, responsible trait.
Right. Now, this one, as you might expect,
Is a big one.
it's the biggest one. Conscientiousness came out as the strongest overall positive predictor of academic achievement across the board.
Okay, no huge surprise there. Being hardworking and organized pays off in school.
Definitely. But again, there's a nuance related to how achievement is measured.
Let me guess.
Yeah,
It relates more strongly to grades than to test scores.
you got it. Conscientiousness showed a significantly stronger positive link with grades compared to standardized test scores. And this was true in both language and STEM subjects.
Why would that be?
Well, think about what goes into a grade. Homework completion, punctuality, effort in class projects, studying consistently. These are all behaviors teachers directly observe and reward.
Behaviors that are hallmarks of conscientiousness.
Exactly. Standardized tests, on the other hand, don't directly measure those ongoing behaviors. They measure the outcome, the knowledge or skill, but not necessarily the daily grind that went into it.
So your hard work and organization get reflected more clearly on your report card than on that single big test score.
That seems to be the case. And unlike openness, they didn't find a significant difference between language and STEM for conscientiousness. Being organized and diligent seems helpful pretty much everywhere in school.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Moving on. Extroversion, the outgoing, sociable aspect.
Right. Now, this one was interesting. The positive link for extroversion was mainly found in one specific area:
Which was?
language grades.
Only language grades, not tests, not STEM.
Primarily, language grades showed a significant positive association.
Huh. Why language grades specifically?
The likely reason relates to class participation. Language classes often involve, oral presentations, class discussions, debates.
Stuff that extroverts might be more comfortable with or even enjoy.
Exactly. If you're naturally assertive and enjoy interacting, you're more likely to participate actively, make contributions, and that often positively influences a teacher's assessment, especially in subjects where verbal skills are emphasized.
So speaking up in English class helps your grade if you're extroverted, less relevant for, say, a multiple-choice physics test.
Pretty much. They didn't find a significant link between extroversion and STEM grades or STEM test scores, nor with language test scores. The advantage seems tied to the interactive nature of many language classrooms and how teachers grade that participation.
Fascinating. Okay, what about agreeableness? Being cooperative and kind.
Agreeableness showed a pretty small overall association with achievement, kind of weak links.
So being nice doesn't necessarily mean you ace your exams.
Not directly, it seems. But there was a slight twist. They found a small positive association specifically with language test scores.
Language tests this time, not grades.
Right, language tests. But it was non-significant for STEM test scores. And for grades, there were small positive links in both language and STEM, but no real difference between them.
So being agreeable helps slightly on language tests and maybe gets you slightly better grades overall, but it's not a major factor. Why language tests?
That's a bit speculative. Maybe agreeable students are more willing to engage in, say, communicative tasks if they're part of the test, perhaps less confrontational in group discussion parts.
Or maybe less competitive, which might hinder them slightly in cutthroat STEM tests.
Possibly. And for grades, maybe teachers just tend to view agreeable students slightly more favorably, leading to marginally better grades across subjects. But again, the key word is slightly, the effects for agreeableness were generally quite small.
Good to know. Okay, last one, neuroticism. Anxiety, emotional instability.
Yeah. And as you probably predict, this one generally had negative effects on achievement.
So higher neuroticism tends to mean lower achievement.
Overall, yes. But again, the specifics matter. The negative correlations were stronger in STEM subjects compared to language subjects.
More negative in STEM, both grades and tests.
Both grades and tests in STEM showed a stronger negative link with neuroticism than in language.
Okay, and what about tests versus grades generally?
Neuroticism was also more negatively correlated with test scores compared to grades, and that was true for both language and STEM.
So anxiety seems particularly tough for STEM, and especially tough when facing tests in general.
That's what the data points towards. Think about things like math anxiety or test anxiety. They seem to hit harder in STEM fields and in high-stakes testing situations.
Yeah, that pressure cooker environment of a timed test could really trigger anxiety for someone high in neuroticism.
Absolutely. And the researchers pointed out something quite striking. The negative impact of neuroticism on STEM test scores was almost as strong in magnitude as the positive impact of conscientiousness.
Wow. So anxiety in a STEM test can potentially cancel out the benefit of being super organized and hardworking.
It really highlights how significant that emotional component can be, especially in specific contexts like STEM testing.
Okay, that's a lot to take in for each trait. So if we try to pull this all together, what are the big picture messages? What should someone listening take away from this?
I think the absolute main takeaway is that the relationship between personality and school success is definitely not one size fits all. It's complex.
Depends.
It really depends. It depends on the specific trait, it depends on the subject language or STEM, and it depends heavily on how you're measuring success grades or test scores.
So you can't just say, this personality trait is good for school. You have to ask, good for what kind of schoolwork, and how are we judging good?
Precisely. Which also means there isn't one single best way to measure achievement if you're interested in personality. The measure you choose should match the question you're asking.
Right. And that has implications for researchers too, doesn't it? They need to consider these specifics.
Absolutely. Future research really needs to account for these domain-specific and measure-specific effects. Just looking at overall GPA and broad personality traits might obscure these really important
We
patterns.
could end up with incomplete or even kind of misleading conclusions otherwise.
Exactly. And one other interesting point they touched on was looking beyond the core Big Five traits at related skills.
Like what kind of skills?
Things like social skills, emotional regulation, specific behavioral strategies. These are related to personality, but might be more, well, malleable, more open to intervention.
Ah, so while changing your core personality might be hard, maybe we can teach skills that help students manage anxiety or collaborate better or study more effectively.
That's the idea. Exploring how those specific skills impact achievement in different subjects and assessments could be really fruitful for finding ways to actually help students succeed, regardless of their underlying personality.
Okay, so summing it all up, getting into the details, personality traits, subject, how we measure success gives us a much richer picture than just looking at averages.
Definitely. It moves us past those simple assumptions and shows just how fascinatingly complex learning and individual differences really are.
This has definitely made me think differently about my own school days, how maybe being more introverted affected my participation grades, or how being curious helped in certain subjects.
And that's a great way to think about it personally,
Yeah.
reflecting on your own personality, your strengths, maybe your challenges in light of different subjects or tests.
Yeah, and maybe thinking about what kind of learning environment or even assessment style would have suited you best.
Exactly. It's about understanding yourself better as a learner within these different contexts.
Well, this has certainly been a deep dive. Really fascinating stuff. Thanks for breaking down this complex research for us.
My pleasure. It's really interesting work.
And thanks to all of you for joining us today. Hopefully this gives you a new lens through which to view the intricate dance between who we are and how we learn. Until our next dive, keep exploring.